Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to learn about Active Directory. This is the diagram of the setup we are going to make. First thing we're going to do is download and install VirtualBox. Then download Windows 10 ISO and Windows Server 2019 ISO. Then we're going to create our first virtual machine, which is going to be our domain controller. Then once we have created the first virtual machine, we're going to configure two network interface controllers, one for the internet and the other for the internal network, which is the private network. Then we're going to install the server on it, server 2019. Then we're going to assign IP addressing for the internal network, which are these. This is the IP address, this is a subnet mask and DNS and so on. The external network will get the IP address from your home router, so we don't have to worry about that. We'll just need to set up the internal NIC. And once that's done, we're going to name the server and install the Active Directory services and create a domain. Then we're going to configure routing and NAT so that our clients on the private network can reach the internet through domain controller. Then we're going to set up a DHCP server on our domain controller so that our Windows 10 machine can automatically get an IP. Then we are going to create a few users so that we can use them in our domain. Then once we are done with that, we'll go ahead and create another VM, this one here. We'll install Windows 10 on it, then connect it to the private VirtualBox network, the internal network. Then we're going to name it as client 1 and join it to the domain. Then we're going to finally log into the client machine as one of our domain users that we have created. There are links in the description for downloading VirtualBox and the Windows operating systems. For VirtualBox, we're going to click on downloads, and you can download from here for your appropriate operating system. And we also need to download the extension pack. Then we're going to download, we could download Windows Server 2019 from this link from over here, and Windows 10 from this page, and download this tool which would allow you to download the Windows 10 ISO. Once we have downloaded and installed the VirtualBox, we can go ahead and open it. Here we will create a new virtual machine. We're going to name it DC, and for version you have to select other Windows 64-bit and next. and RAM you're going to give it 4 GB. Actually 2 GB will be fine, so 2048 MB, and click next. Click create, next, next, and next. Then we need to configure the settings. Click on here, go to network, an adapter. We're going to set up two adapters, one for the NAT for connecting to the internet, and the other one for internal network. Enable it here, select internal network and click OK. Also we need to go to advanced, and on shared clipboard select bidirectional. For this one, same bidirectional, which will let you drag and drop from your Windows, your physical Windows to the virtual machine. And for shared clipboard, you can Control C and Control V to the virtual machine. Press OK. Then we're going to start the virtual machine. Once it starts, we have to select the ISO image for the Windows Server we have downloaded. Click over here and go to select the Windows Server ISO, then press on start. This is going to start the installation process for our operating system. Click on next, click on install now. Going to click on Windows 2019 Server Standard Evaluation Desktop Experience. Click on next. Click on next. Then we need to click on custom. Next. This will install the Windows Server operating system. So I'll be back once it's done the installation process. So once it's done installing, we need to add a password. Click on finish. And once we are here, we need to go to input, keyboard, and click on this insert Control Alt Delete, and type in our password. So once we have logged into the desktop, we'll go ahead and maximize this window. we'll get a server manager window that for the time we will go and minimize. We'll go to devices, then click on insert Gus additions, CD image, and go to the file explorer. Click on this PC, and we're going to double click on CD drive, and we'll double click on this one. So what this is going to do is this will help us smoothly run our VM once we have installed this. We can see that our mouse is kind of slow. This will be fixed once we have installed this, and once we enlarge the window, we can see that the VM window won't enlarge with the window. This can be fixed with this installation. We'll go ahead and have a look. Plus next. Click on next again. Next. It's going to take a minute to install. We'll go and select I want to manually reboot later and select finish. Then we will go and change the name of our computer to something simple. Click on about, and click on rename this PC. We'll type in the name DC. Now we can see the current PC name is this, which is too long and not easy to remember, so we will just put the name DC and click on next. Then now we will need to restart the computer. Click on restart now. Just click on continue. We have rebooted the virtual machine. We'll go to input, keyboard, insert Control-Alt-Delete, enter the password. We'll go and select full screen mode. Now we'll select scale mode. Press no. Now we need to minimize this window for now. Then we'll change the network interface controller settings. we'll go and select here, click here, and click on this. Click on change adapter options. Now we have two adapters. One is for the internal network and the other for the internet. So in order to identify which one is for the internet and which one is for the internal network, we need to go and right click on any one of the adapters and go to status, click on details. So once we have the auto configuration IPv4 as this address, this is the APIPA address, which means that this we need to so if we see this address 169.254.59.100, this is we can confirm that this is the internal network adapter. So we will go ahead and rename this as internal. So this is the internet adapter. Now we need to configure the IP address for the internal adapter. We'll click on properties. We'll go to use the following IP address, and we will use the IP address that we have on the image. Which is 172.16.0.1. We'll add it here. 172.16.0.1, and the subnet mask will be 255.255.255.0. Default gateway is going to be blank, and the preferred DNS server, we have to give it the localhost address 0.0.1.1, and click on OK. Click close and close this window. Now we can see that when we have installed the VirtualBox guest editions, our VM is running smoothly, smoother than before, and we can drag our window to adjust the VM screen along with it. So I'll just go ahead and maximize this. So now we will go and install the Active Directory services. We're going to click on Manage, Add Roles and Features. Going to click on Next, Next, Next again. We will click on Active Directory Services, Active Directory Domain Services. Click on Add Features. Click on Next, Next again, Next, and press Install. This is going to take a while. The installation is complete. We'll go and click close. Now we need to update the server to a domain controller. Click here, promote this server to a domain controller. We will create our domain here. We'll click on add a new forest. We'll go and enter a domain name, which is mydomain.com. Click on next. Enter a password, which we won't be using, but we do have to enter. Click on next. Click on next. Click on next again. Next. Next. Click on install. Your system will automatically restart once we have completed the installation of. I'll go ahead and log in. Now we can see that before our username, there's the name of our domain has been added. We'll go enter the password. We'll minimize this for now. Now we're going to make a new user so we can replace the inbuilt administrator account we have been using until now. We'll go to start. Windows administrative tools. And Active Directory users and computers. Here we can see our domain, mydomain.com. Inside this domain we're going to make an organizational unit, which it's basically like a branch. It's basically like a branch of a company which will have a specific set of users and computers. We'll create the organizational unit. We will name it admins. Press OK. Then we will create a new user in this OU. I'm going to name it John Smith. For user logon name, J Smith. I'll just put the initial of the first name, J Smith. Initial of the first name and the last name, so it's J Smith. and click on next. Well, we will add a password. Click on user must change password at next login. We will disable that for the demonstration purpose. We don't need this option. We will click on password never expires and then click next. Click finish. Now the user we have created is just a standard user. We won't be having administrator privileges. So we will right click on it, go to properties in order to add this user to the group of administrators. We will go to member of and click on add. Here we will type in administrators. Pages. Click on check names. So once you see the underline, you can confirm that the group exists. So press OK and press OK again. So now we have added John Smith to our group of administrators. He has become an admin now. So we'll close this. We'll log into the user we just created. We'll go and sign out of the administrator account. We will input keyboard and Control Delete. Go to other user, type in the login name and the password. Press enter. Now we can see that we're being logged into the John Smith account. Now we will go ahead and set up routing so that our client machines can, our Windows 10 client machine can connect to the internet through this VM, which is the domain controller. We'll go to manage, add roles and features, click next, next again, next, and we will scroll down and go to remote access. We'll select remote access, click next, next again, next, and we will click on routing, add features. This will be automatically selected, the first one. Click on next, next again, we have to click next and install. Once that has been installed, click on tools, go to routing and remote access, click on DC. You can see that routing is not active right now. There's a red button meaning routing is inactive. right click on it, click on configure and enable routing and remote access, click on next, click on network address translation, click on next. So actually this has to work. Our two of the adapters we configured earlier has to show up here, but there's something wrong with the application, so we'll just go and close this and reopen it again. So routing and remote access, right click and click on this, click next, click NAT, next. Now we can see that the adapters are showing up here. So you will need to click on internet, use the public interface to connect to the internet. So will you click on this, click next and finish. This will be quick. Now we can see there's a green button which shows our routing setup is active. Now we will go ahead and close this window. Now we will set up a DHCP server on this domain controller, so our client machine can automatically get an IP. We'll click on manage, add roles and features, next, next, next. We'll click on DHCP server, click on add features, click next, next again, next once more, and press on install, click on install. So it is installed. We'll close this. We'll close this wizard. We'll go to tools and DHCP. Now here we can see that our DHCP server is inactive. You can see our DHCP server is inactive. You can see the red button here. We'll click on IPv4, right click on it, click on new scope, click on next, and we'll give the scope the name the same as the range of the IP address, which is 172.16.0.100 to 200. So we can check here 172.16.0.100 to 200. I actually made a typo here in the diagram, so bear with me for this fix. Then press next, and here we have to enter the starting IP address 172.16.0.100, the starting range of our the starting IP address of our range, and end IP address will be the same with 200 at the end. Here we will add 24, which will be our subnet mask, which is our subnet mask, and click on next. Then this is the, if we want to add any exclusion to the IP address range. So in order to separate any IP addresses that we don't want to give it to the clients, so we don't have it to configure this here now, so we'll press next. Then this is the least duration, which is the time, which is the duration a device holds an IP address before it's released back into the IP address scope. So for example, if you are running a restaurant and a customer comes in and he uses your internet or through Wi-Fi for, let's say, half an hour and leaves, and your lease duration is set to 8 days, the the IP address that the customer used won't be going back to your DHCP pool until 8 days. So we will have to, in those situations, we will want to set it to, let's say, maybe 8 hours or less than that. For our purpose, 8 days is fine. So we'll click on next. Then this is configure DHCP options, which is if we want our DHCP server to tell our devices which DNS server to use, or for example, or which IP address to use for the router gateway. So we will need to configure that right now. So I select on yes, I want to configure these options now. Click on next, and the router or default gateway, this is the as we have said, this is the router address for the client PCs, client virtual machines. We can check in the diagram that our setup is so that the client VM can connect to the internet through domain controller. So our domain controller will be the gateway for the client PCs or client VMs. So we will go ahead and add the IP address of the domain controller as the gateway, so which is 172.16.0.1, 172.16.0.1. We'll click on add, click on next. So for the domain name and DNS servers, when we install Active Directory on the domain controller, we automatically install DNS server along with it. So it is automatically added. You can see that this is the IP address of the domain controller is the DNS server for the client machines. So we will click next, and Win server is actually, I don't care about that. It's like an old technology, so we'll skip it. We don't need to configure it. Next, and yes, I want to activate this scope now. Press next and finish. So we might want to refresh it, and so that option didn't work for me actually, because there was a mistake in setting up our user account. So if you have to go to the Windows Administrative Tools and Active Directory Users on Computers, and John Smith Properties. We have to add John Smith to the domain admins. I have already added him to the domain admins. In order to add him to the domain admins, if you haven't, click add and type domain admins and click on check names, then press OK. I've already added him. So if you have any error with the DHCP server, just go ahead and add your user to the domain admins group. So now your DHCP setup is done. You can see your DHCP server is configured, it's up and running. You can see here our DHCP server is up and running. So now our client computers can get IP addresses from the DHCP server that we just set up on the domain controller. Now before we go and make the client to EM, we'll have to make a few users so that we can use them to connect to the domain from our client VM or computer. So we'll go to Windows Administrative Tools, Active Directory, Users and Groups, and here in the admins we'll create a few more users, 2 or 3. We'll go to user, we'll add Rayhan, P, let's say Rayhan P as the login name. We'll click next, and for password I'm going to enter a password. I'm going to select password never expires. I'll click on next and finish. We will create one more user, which is and the user login name Shibila P. Click on next, deselect this, select this on the password. Click on next, finish. Now we will close this. this, no, this.